equivalent to $5 billion today, appropriated for the RS-70 C variants. McNamara was unsuccessful with an address to the Husk on the 14th of March, but at the 19th of March, 1962 11th-hour White House Rose Garden agreement between Kennedy and Husk Chairman Carl Vinson retracted the bill's language and the bomber remained cancelled. Experimental Aircraft, edit. XB-70 on the taxiway on the 21st of September, 1964, the day of the first flight. The XB-70s were intended to be used for the advanced study of aerodynamics, propulsion, and other subjects related to large supersonic transports. The crew was reduced to only the two pilots, as a navigator and a bombardier were not needed for this research role. The production order was reduced to 3 prototypes in March 1961 with the third aircraft to incorporate improvements from the previous prototype. The order was later reduced to 2 experimental XB-70s, named Air Vehicle 1 and 2, AV-1 and AV-2. XB-70 number 1 was completed on the 7th of May 1964 and rolled out on the 11th of May 1964 at Palmdale, California. One report stated nothing like it existed anywhere. AV-2 was completed on the 15th of October 1964. The manufacture of the third prototype, AV-3, was cancelled in July 1964 before completion. The first XB-70 carried out its maiden flight in September 1964 and many more test flights followed. The data from the XB-70 test flights and aerospace materials development were used in the later B-1 bomber program, the American Supersonic Transport (SST) program, and via espionage, the Soviet Union's Tupolev Tu-144 SST program. The development of the Lockheed U-2 and the SR-71 Blackbird reconnaissance aircraft, as well as the XB-70, prompted Soviet aerospace engineers to design and develop their high-altitude and high-speed MiG-25 interceptor. Design, edit. The Valkyrie was designed to be a high-altitude Mach 3 bomber with 6 engines. Harrison Storms shaped the aircraft with a canard surface and a delta wing, which was built largely of stainless steel, sandwiched honeycomb panels, and titanium. The XB-70 was designed to use supersonic technologies developed for the Mach 3 SM-64 Navajo, as well as a modified form of the Navajo's inertial guidance system. The XB-70 used compression lift, which resulted from a shock wave generated by the leading edge of the engine intake splitter below the apex of the wing. At Mach 3 cruising speed, the shock wave is bent back about 65 degrees and the wing is superimposed on the shock system, which has a pressure 40 pounds per square foot, 1.9 kPa, higher under the aircraft than in front of the shock. The compression lift provided 5% of the total lift. Camber was added to the wing leading edge inboard of the folding tips to improve subsonic handling and reduce supersonic drag. The outer portions of the wings were hinged to pivot downward by 65 degrees, acting as a type of variable geometry wingtip device. This increased the aircraft's directional stability at supersonic speeds, shifted the center of pressure to a more favorable position at high speeds, and caused the shock originating at the intake splitter to reflect from the vertical tip surface, giving additional compression lift. Like a number of other delta-wing aircraft designed for supersonic speeds, Concorde, Tu-144, FD-2, the Valkyrie needed a feature to improve the pilot's view during nose-high low-speed flight and on the ground. An outer windshield and ramp, which could be lowered, was provided, enabling viewing through the fixed cockpit windshield. With the ramp raised into its high-speed position, the forebody was more streamlined. Rain removal and windshield anti-ice was accomplished by utilizing 600 degrees Fahrenheit, 320 degrees Celsius, bleed air from the engines. The lower forward section included a radar bay, and production machines were to be equipped with a refueling receptacle on the upper surface of the forward fuselage. The XB-70 was equipped with 6 General Electric YJ93 GE3 turbojet engines, which used JP6 jet fuel, specially formulated for the mission requirements. The engine was stated to be in the 30,000 pound class, but actually produced 28,000 lbf, 120 kN, with afterburner and 19,900 lbf, 89 kN, without afterburner. The Valkyrie used fuel for cooling. It was pumped through heat exchangers before reaching the engines. To reduce the likelihood of automation, nitrogen was injected into the JP6 during refueling, and the fuel pressurization and inerting system vaporized a 700-pound, 320 kilograms, supply of liquid nitrogen to fill the fuel tank vent space and maintain tank pressure. Operational history, edit. XB-70 of Valkyrie taking off in August 1965. The XB-70's maiden flight was on the 21st of September 1964. In the first flight test, between Palmdale and Edwards AFB, one engine had to be shut down shortly after takeoff, and an undercarriage malfunction warning meant that the flight was flown with the undercarriage down as a precaution, limiting speed to 390 miles per hour, 630 kilometers per hour, about half that planned. During landing, the rear wheels of the port side main gear locked, the tires ruptured, and a fire started. The Valkyrie first became supersonic, Mach 1.1, on the third test flight on the 12th of October 1964, and flew above Mach 1 for 40 minutes during the following flight on the 24th of October. The wingtips were also lowered partially in this flight. XB-70 number 1 surpassed Mach 3 on the 14th of October 1965 by reaching Mach 3.02 at 70,000 feet, 21,000 m. The first aircraft was found to suffer from weaknesses in the honeycomb panels, primarily due to inexperience with fabrication and quality control of this new material. On 2 occasions, honeycomb panels failed and were torn off during supersonic flight, necessitating a Mach 2.5 limit being placed on the aircraft. The deficiencies discovered on AV-1 were almost completely solved on the second XB-70, which first flew on the 17th of July 1965. On the 3rd of January 1966, XB-70 number 2 attained a speed of Mach 3.05 while flying at 72,000 feet, 22,000 m. AV-2 reached a top speed of Mach 3.08 and maintained it for 20 minutes on the 12th of April 1966. On the 19th of May 1966, AV-2 reached Mach 3.06 and flew at Mach 3 for 32 minutes. Covering 2,400 mi, 3,900 kilometers, in 91 minutes of total flight. A joint NASA /USAF research program was conducted from the 3rd of November 1966 to the 31st of January 1967 for measuring the intensity and signature of sonic booms for the National Sonic Boom Program. Testing was planned to cover a range of sonic boom overpressures on the ground similar to but higher than those anticipated from the proposed American SST. In 1966, AV-2 was selected for the program and was outfitted with test sensors. It flew the first sonic boom test on the 6th of June 1966, attaining a speed of Mach 3.05 at 72,000 feet. 22,000 m. 2 days later, AV-2 crashed following a mid-air collision with an F-104 while flying in a multi-aircraft formation. Sonic boom and later testing continued with XB-70-1. The second flight research program, NASA NAS 4-1174, investigated control of structural dynamics from the 25th of April, 1967 through the XB-70's last flight in 1969. At high altitude and high speed, the XB-70 experienced unwanted changes in altitude. NASA testing from June 1968 included two small vanes on the nose of AV-1 for measuring the response of the aircraft's stability augmentation system. AV-1 flew a total of 83 flights. The XB-70's last supersonic flight took place on the 17th of December, 1968. On the 4th of February, 1969, AV-1 took its final flight to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for museum display, now the National Museum of the United States Air Force. Flight data was collected on this subsonic trip. North American Rockwell completed a 4-volume report on the B-70 that was published by NASA in April, 1972. Variants, edit. XB-70. Prototype of B-70. 2 were built. 1 AV-1, NAR model number NA278, USAFS/N62-0001, completed 83 flights spanning 160 hours and 16 minutes. 2 AV-2, NAR model number NA278, USAFS/N62-0207, flew 46 times over 92 hours and 22 minutes, before it crashed in June 1966. XB-70B. AV-3, NAR model number NA274, USAFS/N62-0208, was originally to be the first YB-70 in March 1961. This advanced prototype was cancelled during early manufacture. YB-70. Planned pre-production version with improvements based on XB-70S. B-70. Planned bomber production version of Valkyrie. A fleet of up to 65 operational bombers was planned. RS-70. Proposed reconnaissance strike version with a crew of 4 and in-flight refueling capability. Incidents and accidents, edit. Incidents, edit. On the 7th of May, 1965, a 3-foot, 1 piece of the apex of the wing broke off in flight and caused extensive damage to 5 of the 6 engines. They were sent to GE and repaired. The 6th engine was inspected and reinstalled in the aircraft. On the 14th of October, 1965, AV-1 surpassed Mach 3, but heat and stress damaged the honeycomb panels, leaving 2 feet, 60 centimeters, of the leading edge of the left wing missing. The first aircraft was limited to Mach 2.5 afterwards. Mid-air collision, edit. On the 8th of June, 1966, XB-70 number 2 was in close formation with 4 other aircraft, an F-4 Phantom, an F-5, AT-38 Talon, and an F-104 Starfighter, for a photo shoot at the behest of General Electric, manufacturer of the engines of all 5 aircraft. A 6th aircraft, a Learjet 23, had been contracted by General Electric to photograph the formation. After the photo shoot, the F-104 drifted into the XB-70's right wing tip, flipped and rolled inverted over the top of the Valkyrie, before striking the bomber's vertical stabilizers and left wing. The F-104 then exploded, destroying the Valkyrie's vertical stabilizers and damaging its left wing. Despite the loss of both vertical stabilizers and damage to the wings, the Valkyrie flew straight for 16 seconds before it entered an uncontrollable spin and crashed north of Barstow, California. NASA Chief Test Pilot Joe Walker, F-104 pilot, and Carl Cross, XB-70 co-pilot, were killed. Al White, XB-70 pilot, ejected, sustaining serious injuries, including the crushing of his arm by the closing clamshell-like escape crew capsule moments prior to ejection. The USAF summary report of the accident investigation stated that, given the position of the F-104 relative to the XB-70, Walker, the F-104 pilot, would not have been able to see the XB-70's wing, except by uncomfortably looking back over his left shoulder. The report said that it was likely that Walker maintained his position by looking at the fuselage of the XB-70, forward of his position. The F-104 was estimated to be 70 feet, 21 m, to the side of the fuselage of the XB-70 and 10 feet, 3.0 m, below. The report concluded that from that position, without appropriate sight cues, Walker was unable to properly perceive his motion relative to the Valkyrie, leading to his aircraft drifting into the XB-70's wing. The accident investigation also pointed to the wake vortex from the XB-70's right wingtip as the reason for the F-104's sudden rollover and into the bomber. The General Electric photoshoot had not been authorized by the Air Force. After the catastrophe, Colonel Albert W. Cate was dismissed from his position, and Colonel Joe Cotton, Colonel James G. Smith and John S. McCollum were reprimanded. Aircraft on display, edit. Valkyrie AV-1, AFSA. Number 62-0001, is on display at the National Museum of the United States Air Force at Wright-Patterson AFB near Dayton, Ohio. The aircraft was flown to the museum on the 4th of February, 1969, following the conclusion of the XB-70 testing program. The Valkyrie became the museum's signature aircraft, appearing on museum letterhead, and even appearing as the chief design feature for the museum's restaurant, the Valkyrie Cafe. In 2011, the XB-70 was on display in the museum's research and development hangar alongside other experimental aircraft. After completion of the fourth hangar at the museum's main campus, the XB-70 was moved there in late October 2015. Specifications, XB-70, edit. Data from PACE, USAF XB-70 fact sheet, B-70 aircraft study, and others. General characteristics. 1 crew, 2 length, 185 feet 0 in, 56.39 m. 3 wingspan, 105 feet 0 in, 32.00 m. 4 height, 30 feet 0 in, 9.14 m. 5 wing area, 6,297 square feet, 585.0 m. 6 airfoil, hexagonal, 0.30 hex modified root, 0.70 hex modified tip. 7 empty weight, 253,600 pound, 115,031 kilograms. 8 gross weight, 534,700 pound, 242,536 kilograms. 9 max takeoff weight, 542,000 pound, 245,847 kilograms. 10 fuel capacity, 300,000 pounds, 140,000 kilograms, /46,745 US gal, 38,923 imp gal, 176,950 L. 11 power plant, 6 General Electric YJ93 afterburning turbojet, 19,900 lbf, 89 kN, Thrust each dry, 28,000 lbf, 120 kN, with afterburner. Performance. 1 maximum speed, 1,787 kN, 2,056 miles per hour, 3,310 kilometers per hour. 2 maximum speed, Mach 3.1. 3 cruise speed, 1,738 kN, 2,000 miles per hour, 3,219 kilometers per hour. 4 combat range, 3,725 mi, 4,287 mi, 6,899 kilometers. 5 service ceiling, 77,350 feet, 23,580 m. 6 lift to drag, about 6 at Mach 2. 7 wing loading, 84.93 pound/square feet, 414.7 kilogram /m. 8 thrust /weight, 0.314. See also, edit. 1 Pyrwacket, a program to develop a defensive missile to be carried by the B-70. 2 Armalite R5 survival rifle, originally developed for XB-70 aircrew survival kits. Related development. 1 North American XF-108 Rapier. Aircraft of comparable role, configuration, and era. 1 Avro 730. 2 English Electric 10P. 3 Sukhoi T4. 4 Tupolev Tu-125. Related lists. 1 List of bomber aircraft. 2 List of military aircraft of the United States. Notes, edit.